Right, today I'm going to be looking at another dash cam. This one's from a company called Viofo. They've sent it to me themselves, and they've also sent me two links that are in the video description, one to their website and another one to a place that they recommend you buy it from if you want it. Let's see if you might want it. Let's go through the stuff that we've got here. Usual USB A2 mini B lead, an AV out lead, which is one of those ones that I never end up using because it's also got an HDMI out on this, but unfortunately no HDMI lead. You'll have to provide that yourself. You've got the usual power lead. This one is powered via a USB plug, which is something I always prefer. That means you could just power it from a USB plug in your car rather than using that. There's a mount for putting it on the windscreen. That's the sort of suction cup one. I'll show you how it all assembles later on, but it's got a ball joint on there. They're quite proud of this mount because they say that it can be directed in 360 degrees because of course you've got the ball joint, you've got the bit at the bottom that can swivel and point up and all sorts of things. If you can't get this camera pointing in the right direction, you're doing something wrong. Now that goes in through there. You see that little metal bar goes through that top bit, so I'll assemble that later on. There's also another mounting option, which is this sticky back one here, and there's another spare sticky back pad for that. Now here's some information in the manual, not an awful lot to read really. There's some specs if you want them, not much to say about those really, and here's some more specs as well. It's an H.264 camera, which of course I always prefer. Right, so here's what it looks like in the car. I've got the usual problem again that I haven't got much of an area in which to put it. This black part here, these dots, you can hear those are raised, so I can't put a suction cup on there, which would be kind of ideal in my car because it would hide it a little bit behind the rear view mirror. Unfortunately then, of course, I wouldn't be able to see the screen on it. I've got to put it below those dots or somewhere over here. This is, of course, the passenger side, that's the driver's side. I wouldn't want it anywhere in my line of sight there, so I'm still trying to figure out exactly where to put it. It's quite a large item. Now, I have got that additional mount. Let me just find that. Hold on a second. Right, here it is. So this is the sticky back one. As you can see, it would make it slightly shorter because, of course, that's the same screw nut there. So it takes a little bit off it, but not an awful lot. And also, of course, once it's in this, you have to keep this stuck to your windscreen because it tightens up around that ball joint there. You could, of course, yank it out every time, but eventually you'd probably end up pulling the sticky back thing off your windscreen. So I prefer to keep it on this suction cup, and it is actually quite a nice small one as well. The size of the suction cup there is about as small as you can get, and it's very good. It's nice and firm. Of course, this can be moved in every direction. You've got the sort of ball joint there, and then you've got this hinge there, so you can get it exactly where you want it. So in a larger car than mine with a bigger windscreen, maybe a truck or a lorry or something, you'd probably find somewhere to put this. One good thing is, of course, the wire comes out of the top of it, which means you could put it around your headlining here. Oh, and I know someone will ask, this blue clip is for a different camera that I'm reviewing at the moment, so ignore that. That's nothing to do with this one here. This video is moving along pretty swiftly. Let's get straight into some footage from the camera. Now, I've only used two resolutions during my testing. This is 720p 60, and notice what you can see, how many cars you can see where the edges of the screen are, because now that's 1080p 30. As you can see, you can't see as much. Usual kind of thing with these cameras, you get less of a field of view in 1080p mode, but of course you get a higher resolution. By the way, the field of view is fine in 1080p. You don't need to worry about using 720p 60. As you can see, the shot you're looking at now has been recorded in 1080p 30 and everything's in frame. By the way, I'm going to show you the gap between the clips. So look at the sign at the top right, clip 1 and now clip 2. That was the two clips joined together. As you can see, they're pretty seamless. There might be one frame missing perhaps, but it's nothing to worry about. Now, if there's any jerkiness at all in this video, I'm noticing again when I'm editing this, it looks a little bit jerky. That's probably my computer or something because they're not jerky at all. I'm going to try and put some samples up on my website so you can download them if you need to, but trust me, they look great. Now, I know whenever I get sent anything for free, there's quite a few people out there that think that my criticism can't be trusted because maybe I'm going to pull some punches or say something's great when it's rubbish or whatever. Now, if you're one of those people, I'd switch off now because if you can't trust what I'm going to say, then why are you bothering watching it? But for the people that have remained here, I mean, if I get something and I don't like it, I'll give constructive criticism when I get it sent for free because I don't really want to upset the manufacturer, but I'll tell them if something's wrong. Looking at this, I've found very little to criticise. I mean, look at the video quality that's coming out of this camera. It's as good as a lot of camcorders. Now, you don't intend to use a car camera for storing footage of your journeys and playing it back to your relatives or whatever, but this is the kind of quality that you could actually do that with. Now the trip that I'm on at the moment, down the motorway, as you can see, nice and sharp and clear. The sun is setting. You can see the time at the bottom right there on the little time stamp. It's about 7:30. There's long shadows from that van coming past, so you can see the sun's going down. So this is a good way I can test how it copes in different lighting conditions. I'm going into Manchester Airport at the moment. Now just look at all the signs and detail and clarity on this. You can read that sign if you freeze the frame there. You see where all the different things are. If you could find your way around Manchester Airport, you're doing better than I am. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to drive into the car park. I've got someone to pick up. I'm not just coming here for fun. And then I'll show you how it copes with the different lighting conditions as I go out of the car park. You can see everything in the car park. Oh, by the way, here's a tip. If you're going out of a car park like this, don't park behind, don't go out behind a posh car like either of these two. I mean, if there was something in front of me now, like that old transit van, I'd park behind that, because the reason is those kind of guys never want to pay at that pay station. They always want to pay with a credit card on the way out. And as you can see here, they were paying when I got there. They're still paying now. And I'm off and out. Just a tip for you, nothing to do with car cameras, but always leave a car park behind the crappiest car that's in the queue. That's my tip anyway. But as you can see now, sun's going down, it's behind those clouds there. This camera is the best camera I've ever seen for coping with lighting changes like this. You can see it's kind of gone a bit dark now, but you can still make everything out. But when the sun goes directly into the lens on most cameras, they have a complete flip out and don't know what to do. And then there's this sort of gradual step up and step down with the darkness and brightness and things. This camera has none of those problems. You can drive straight into the sun, like now for example, and it copes with that fine. Now some cameras in those situations, they would look at the brightest part of the picture and they make everything pitch black to kind of compensate, just so that bright bit was the right brightness for the exposure settings. Now look at this again, driving down the motorway straight into the sun. I mean, I could hardly see. I had my sunglasses on and a cap down and all the rest of it, but this camera is filming everything as well as you could possibly expect. Now, I'm not saying this camera is perfect. It does have a few issues. The first one is that it's too big for my car. Now, of course, that's a personal thing. The other one is that there's a screen on the back of it which makes it look a lot like a sat-nav. I imagine if I left this in my windscreen, someone would try and break in and steal it. Perhaps in the parts of the world where they design these things, that's not likely to happen, but unfortunately it is where I park. Also, the sound quality isn't particularly good. Have a listen to this. Right, so it's 7:17 in the evening. This is the first pass. I'll try and come back round later on when it's gone a bit darker. Now I'll talk about that audio again in a second, but just have a look at this nighttime footage here. It's really nice and clear and sharp. Look at the colours, green on the left, blue on the right, car there. You can see all these shop signs. There's no graininess in the scene, or very little at all. It doesn't gain up the footage, make it all kind of bright and glary. It's perfect. I mean, you don't need any better than this. I mean, remember, this is a car camera. We're not shooting a 4K IMAX film here. We just want to record footage of our journeys nice and clearly, and this is doing as good a job as you could possibly need. But yeah, back to that audio. It records the volume at a very low level. It's not really suitable if you plan on doing sort of audio commentaries on your journey or anything like that. I'm not interested in audio in car cameras, but I know some people are, so just bear that in mind. Let's test out some 720p footage. Here it is. You can tell it's 720p. It's kind of gone a bit grainier, but I've had some cameras where you go into 720p and the resolution sort of halves. It looks terrible. This one just looks like 720p really. So if you want 720p 60, it's fine. I'd always stick to 1080p 30 though. You might as well just have the extra resolution. Okay, so we've reached the section of the video where I show you how the camera operates, all the on-screen functions and things. I'll warn you though, this does take about 8 to 10 minutes to get through. Right, so let's have a look around the camera first of all. As you can see, the front of it is all black. There's no sort of chrome bits or any other flair like that on it, which means that if you put it in a car windscreen, it's not going to be too obvious, which is a good thing. Now, around the lens here, you'll see it says 5 megapixels. And autofocus. It's not autofocus, that's wrong. It's just a fixed focus like every other car camera. There's no need for autofocus in a car camera because you're going to be viewing everything from about 6 foot to infinity. Now this here says GPS. Ignore that. There's two models of this camera. There's the 960 and the 960S. The S has the GPS functionality in it. This is actually a 960S. However, the manufacturers have told me that the GPS isn't really ready for prime time yet. The playback software that they've got is having a little bit of problems, so they want me to review this as a 960, i.e. the model without GPS, which is fine because I don't like looking at GPS anyway. Demonstrating the software on the computer is a bit of a nightmare, and it's not something I actually like doing. So I'm just reviewing this as a normal car camera that doesn't have GPS. Now, looking around it, let's see what else we've got on it here. That's where the micro SD card goes in. This side, that's the HDMI out. There's nothing on the bottom other than a speaker. Actually, there is something, isn't there? There's a speaker, there's a microphone, and there's a reset button. Now, on the back of it are 4 buttons that are around the screen now. I'll show you those in a minute. But on the top here, you'll see that that's a flap that has the USB plug there. There's an AV out plug there as well. And you've got the power on and a shutter button. I'll show you what that does in a minute. Now, you'll notice I've got this kind of large thing on the top here which is getting in the way while I'm shooting, so I'm going to take that off. Now, of course, there's two options here. You can see the other one. I can attach a different sticky back one at the joint here, at the ball joint, or use the suction cup. As you can see here, you just have to, easier said than done, loosen that nut there, and then you can move it around freely like that and tighten it up, obviously, to tighten it up. To change it over, of course, I'd do the same. I'd loosen it up, plonk it on the ball joint. However, once I've stuck that to the windscreen, the whole thing's stuck. It's not easy to remove unless you do all this sort of unscrewing business, which isn't something you really want to be doing on a regular basis. So we'll get that out of the way and just have a look at it like this. It's a little bit easy to handle now. Right, okay, so let's switch it on. Of course, the camera will turn on and off automatically with the power in the car. I'm going to do it manually here because I haven't got any wires plugged into it. So we'll press the on button here, hold it down for a second, and it says welcome. A rather blurry welcome screen for some reason. I'm not too sure why that is, but the actual screen itself is nice and clear. One thing about the screen though, it doesn't view very well off axis. As you can see here, it goes completely dark at that angle. It's viewable there and upwards, and but not much sort of off axis like that. Right, now let's go into the menu screens. Let's zoom in a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing. So first off, that button there at the bottom right, that switches between photo mode and video mode, and it just goes back and forth between them. In photo mode, if we press that button on the top, it takes a photo. I don't really know why you need to take photos with a car camera, but this one does it anyway. Now we'll go back into the video mode. If we press the top right button here, we get into the playback menus, and if we go up through the screens here to see something we've recorded earlier on and play it back, we'll pick this one in the middle here. If I go OK there, using the OK button, that plays it back. It gets it on screen. Press again, plays it back. As you can see there, plays nice and clearly. We can go fast forward and slow motion as well on that one if we're really interested in doing that. So that's the buttons on the right hand side really. You can play back the videos in the video mode, of course. If you're in the photo mode and press that button, you get into the photos that you took, if you took any photos, that is. Now these buttons on the left hand side, notice they've got dual purpose. We've got record and OK on that one, and mode and SOS on the other one. Now obviously record, press that button, it starts recording. Little light flashes here, the timer starts counting up. And if I press OK, or record again I should say, it stops recording. So that's pretty simple, isn't it? Now if we go into the menus, that now becomes an OK button for all the options that we're selecting. So we'll look at this first one. We've got 3 different things here. If I go OK on that one, we can change the quality between super fine, fine or normal. Resolution from 1080p 30, 720p 60, and then various other resolutions that are lower than that as well. Motion detection, on and off. I don't use motion detection. If you want to know about motion detection and why I don't use it, watch my beginner's guide to car cameras. That explains it a little bit more detail. Video duration, how long the clips are going to be. I'm using 1 minute here, but you can have 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and that's it. Loop video, on or off, obviously. Crash sensitivity, that's a G sensor again. You can change the sensitivity between 2G, 4G and 8G, whatever those are, but also conveniently enough you can have it switched off, which is what I do, so it doesn't lock files every time it goes over a pothole. Parking mode, I'm not sure what this is. I couldn't figure it out, to be honest. On or off. Either way, nothing seemed to happen. Upside down, you can flip the video if you want. If you mount the camera upside down, of course, you'd press that option, or you'd select that option, and that's it. So that's everything in the video menu. Not really much to select in there. Once you've got it set to the quality that you want, 1080p 30 in my case, and the video duration down to a minute, that's pretty much it. You just leave that menu alone. Next menu along, setup. Again, you'll only need to go into this once probably. How long you want the LCD to stay on before it switches off. I have mine come on for a minute when I get in the car and turn on the power, so I can make sure it's pointing in the right direction, but then it switches off and the screen goes blank so it doesn't distract me. You can have it set to 3 minutes, or you can have it just stay on all the time if you wanted. And the auto power off, that's how long before the camera powers off if it's not being used. Time setup, obviously set the time. Volume for the beep in the camera. Reset the settings, format the card in the camera, again as always, format the card in the camera rather than somewhere else. Change the language between these languages, just so you know, there aren't so many. That's it. Have the timestamp, oops, still got that selected. Okay, have the timestamp on or off, that is overlaid on the video of course. Beep sound on or off, we could switch it on if we want. The annoying thing with that is it also does a chime when it starts up and shuts down, which kind of gets irritating, so that's why I've got it switched off. You can have the volume set low, of course, and it wouldn't be as annoying. And that's the firmware version there. And then the last menu here, this one titled AAA, I think they ran out of things to call this one. That's just a few more options about the mode we're in to do with setting these things like the flicker, the contrast, the sharpness, the exposure, the white balance, the exposure bias, and the metering mode. I haven't needed to change any of these because the camera got the exposure, white balance and all the rest of this right anyway. There's no need for me to manually change anything. The auto settings worked fine. So that's it. So once you've got all that set, you never need to go in there again as far as I'm concerned. Now there's a couple of different things that happen when the camera's recording. We'll get it recording now. These buttons sort of have multiple functions. As you can see there, that one says SOS. So if I press that when we're driving along, it means that file now is going to be locked on the card and can't be deleted without formatting the card. Now if I press this button up here, just look at the speaker there, you see a little cross on it, that turns the recording of the sound on and off as we're driving along. And if I press the bottom right one here, see the little camera there flash? That's to signify that it's took a photo or a still out of the video. Again, if you really wanted to. So that's everything on the camera. Very easy to use, very nicely laid out, simple, it's not difficult. The menus make sense on this one, apart from that thing maybe that says AAA, but it doesn't really matter. Pretty much does exactly what you'd expect it to. So I found an appropriate HDMI mini to full-size HDMI lead, plugged it into the television. As you can see here, you can get through the usual on-screen menus that you can on the camera. Basically everything's duplicated that you can see on the camera screen on the television, and you can play back videos and things, and they look nice as well, nice 1080p quality, looks fine. As far as weight of this camera goes, some people like to know these things. I'm going to include the suction cup with this, so that's 184.5 grams, which is 6.5 ounces, just so you know. So there you go, that was my review of Viofo's VF960 or G900 car camera, depending on who you ask. A perfectly good car camera, can't complain about this one at all really. It's almost like the Volvo of car cameras. Might be a bit big, but it works fine and does exactly what you expect it to. I can't fault the video quality at all. The sound quality, not so good really. If you're interested in sound, this might not be the camera for you. And also, of course, you've got to find space for it in your car. Now, as always, remember, links in the video description to the manufacturers and to somewhere to buy it from, which will reveal the current price at the time you're watching this video. But for the moment, thanks for watching.